odd. What is this? Okay, I think we're live, but I need the chat to see. Alright then. I hope this means that I'm streaming, but I can't see anybody. Good evening, because it is evening over here where I am. Alright, so today we're going to talk about a topic that I find interesting, which is Alaksmi's nakshatras. I'm just going to wait until the chat comes alive a little bit. You know something? I need to figure out how to do that thing. That thing that other YouTubers do before a video starts, but I don't know how to do that. Alright then, 2 people in the chats, 3 people in the chats. Say hi everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I need to know how many people are in my audience. Over here it says 9 concurrent views. Alright then, I guess we can begin. So let me come over here to my little document. So Goddess Alaksmi is the sister and counterpart to Goddess Lakshmi. We all know Goddess Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. And she's also the goddess of physical geometric beauty. The goddess Alaksmi has long been considered the goddess of poverty and destitution, but this is not essentially true, as she is more so the goddess of dissatisfaction, the goddess who is never satiated, and so she does not satiate others. In this document, we'll be exploring this aspect of hers and how the force of Goddess Alaksmi is actually connected to individuals who are fascinated by luxury, individuals who are extremely ambitious, and individuals with extremely refined taste, but despite that are still never satisfied. Goddess Alaksmi has long been associated with 3 other goddesses, namely Jyeshtā, with a long A vowel, Goddess Nirrit, who is the deity of the nakshatra of Mula, and also Goddess Dhumavati, the Mahavidya who releases us from the smoke of material reality. And so Dhumavati also has many of Alakshmi's qualities, but she is a goddess that frees us from Alakshmi's qualities, the qualities that I'm going to be discussing. Goddess Alaksmi is therefore also associated with the nakshatras of Jyeshtā and Mula by way of their significations, but she is also associated with planet Saturn, which is not only a planet that carries many of her significations of poverty, but who is also associated with her because it is said that the wife of Saturn is a form of Alakshmi. The wife of Saturn is Jyeshtā with a long A. Alaksmi is also associated with planet Ketu, as planet Ketu is also connected to another form of Alakshmi, and that is Goddess Dhumavati. So everything that is said in this document will also apply as a general rule to individuals with placements in Jyeshtā nakshatra, Mula nakshatra, as well as individuals with Saturn and Ketu prominent in their charts. So somebody with Saturn in the first house, Saturn conjunct Moon, Saturn conjunct Sun, they could also strongly relate to this. Someone with Ketu in the first, Ketu conjunct Sun, Ketu conjunct Moon, they could also relate very strongly to this because all of these placements are related to Alaksmi. All right? Okay. Howdy, howdy. Hello, Mango Juice. Hello, Manuel Juarez. I don't know what this plus sign means. Okay. Alright then, moving on. So beginning with a few of her most recognizable features, she holds a gold winnowing basket. Let's pull up a few pictures of her. Let me just delete these pictures of Kim Kardashian as I have no longer any need of them. Let's pull up some of Goddess Alakshmi's images so we can contemplate them further. This is one image. Oh, that's something else. This is another one of her images. what you will find is that many of these images, because people often conflate Alaksmi, Jyeshta, Dhumavati, and Nirrit. And so actually when you're looking for images of one of those goddesses, they conflate them with all of the other goddesses. And they often carry similar iconography. This is another image. This is another image. That is an image of Kim Kardashian that I thought I had deleted, but apparently not. So notice something. Look over here. She carries a gold winnowing basket over here. And she also has a gold chariot, which in some images is depicted as being driven by crows, but in other images, it has nothing driving it. Over here, she has what appears to be like a gold castle. But according to some sources of this specific image that we're looking at, this was modeled after a temple in Bengali. Although it looks like a castle, it very much looks like a castle. But some sources say it is actually a temple. Again, we see a gold chariot with no horses, no nothing. And we see a gold winnowing basket. So now let's go back to some of her descriptions. So beginning with a few of her most recognizable features, she holds a gold winnowing basket. We all know what a winnowing basket is, right? A winnowing basket is a tool that is used to separate various things, like various food items, various seeds, separating the good seeds from the bad seeds, the good morsels from the bad morsels. That is what winnowing baskets are used for. So you can eat the things that are edible and to throw away the things that are not edible. She holds a gold winnowing basket, which actually suggests that she's extremely picky. Goddess Alaksmi, is very, very picky about the morsels she chooses to indulge in. Despite starving, despite being very hungry, she is unwilling to lower her standards. So she aspires to ever more refined morsels and yet is still never satisfied by what she consumes. These goddesses that relate to Alaksmi are capable of really swallowing up all of material reality and still beg for more. And the individuals who are under her energies are much the same way. So, here's an image of hers. She holds a gold winnowing basket, which, as I was just reading, what it suggests is that despite that she is a hungry goddess, because Alaksmi is described as a starving goddess, her body is emaciated, her cheeks are sunken, and so she is needful of food. She needs to eat, right? Because she's in a state of decay, so she needs to eat. But despite dying and despite existing in a state of decay, she still dares to be extremely picky of everything that she consumes. She's extremely picky. And so again, like I said, her energies describe those who have a lot of Saturn, Ketu, Jyeshta, or Mula energies, right? She's extremely picky of everything that she consumes. This is different from the goddess of Lakshmi, who is satiated by everything that she is given. A Lakshmi, despite the fact that she's hungry and starving and wants to eat, she does not lower her standards. Right? Because her gold winnowing basket suggests that she wants only to consume the most excellent things, but her standards are always increasing. Another important feature of her iconography is her gold chariot that we just saw, which is horseless. Of the various interpretations, one could see this horseless gold chariot as symbolic of her hoarding tendencies. Why hoarding? Because despite her very valuable, very precious gold vehicle, this vehicle has no practical value because she does not use it to go anywhere. It simply sits there in the vast empty cremation ground, which is her setting. Hoarding, therefore, is another one of her qualities. This is different from the effects of her sister Lakshmi, who is often seen with open hands, allowing the wealth of her waters to flow both into her and out of her, as she does not hoard. Let us try to look for some images of goddess Lakshmi here. Let us try finding some images of goddess Lakshmi. Some paintings. Here's one. Let's look at this. This is another one, but nah, I don't think so. Those are statues. Oh, this one I like. But this one is Kamalatmika. But it's a version of Lakshmi, so it's fine. So that's fine. Here we have Vishnu, we see him, Narayana. Page 2. Alright then, so we have this image right here. We have this image right here. So notice something that is very different from Goddess Lakshmi and Goddess Alakshmi. By the way, for those of you who don't know, these two goddesses, they always travel together because they're sisters. Alakshmi is older, Lakshmi is younger. They always travel together. The goddess of wealth and the goddess of poverty, the goddess of satiation and the goddess that is never satiated, they're always together. Notice that Goddess Lakshmi is plump, whereas Alakshmi is dry and bony. Lakshmi is plump and there's a lot of water and wetness around her, right? The nature of wealth is said to be watery, said to be liquid, right? And so Goddess Lakshmi is often depicted as open-handed. Her hands are often open because she easily receives wealth, the wealth of waters, and she easily gives the wealth of waters as well. And so she does not hoard, which is unlike Goddess Alakshmi. Unlike Goddess Alakshmi. So last paragraph before I come to the chat. Greed is an important and distinct quality of Goddess Alakshmi. She is horribly greedy, but can never gain enough money or luxury. Greed, however, is destroyed by Goddess Lakshmi naturally as she satiates everyone. Yes, a winnowing basket like Purva Ashada, but the significations are quite different because Purva Ashada is also a watery goddess, and so within Purva Ashada there is satiation. Purva Ashada satiates herself, and Purva Ashada also satiates everybody else, you see. And so it's different. They both share winnowing baskets, but it's different. The winnowing basket of Alakshmi is gold, and Alakshmi is dry and is never satiated by anything. So, yeah, her nature can tell us a lot about. So, Jyeshtā individuals and Mula individuals also share in the greediness of Goddess Alakshmi, except the difference is that Mula has the opportunity to free itself from its greed because Mula is more so related to Dhumavati. Yes, Purva Ashada is also very picky, but the difference is that Purva Ashada actually arrives at a state of happiness and actually arrives at a state of satiation, whereas Alakshmi and her nakshatras never arrive stably into a state of happiness and satiation. Oh, and Purva Ashada is actually much more connected to Lakshmi and not Alakshmi. You have to keep that in mind. You have to keep that in mind. So, moving on. There is a general idea that Goddess Lakshmi is a goddess of wealth, but this is not entirely true, as she is actually the goddess of satiation, like I was saying before. She is the goddess that fills the belly and obliterates the desire by fulfilling it, which is much like how Purva Ashada does it. What we're reading right now, this satiating quality of Lakshmi is also related to the satiating quality of Purva Ashada, whereas Alakshmi is the non-satiating qualities of Mula and Jyeshtā. So let's try not to get too confused. If an individual who is genuinely poor, genuinely incapable of feeding themselves or clothing themselves prays to Lakshmi, then the goddess will give this individual just enough for them to feel comfortable and satiated. Goddess Lakshmi actually destroys a person's ambitions. Destroys a person's ambitions. Because ambition is actually just another form of hunger. So, here we're seeing a battle between the goddess that satisfies and the goddess that does not satisfy. The goddess that satisfies hunger, she can satisfy hunger so much that she can literally kill a person's ambitions. It is very difficult for you to exist under the influence of Goddess Lakshmi and be an ambitious person because ambition is just another expression of hunger, right? And consider this, Goddess Lakshmi controls the planet Venus, and she's said to control the planet Venus using the power of the moon and the moon's mantra. Because the mantra of come on now. because the mantra of goddess Lakshmi is Shreem. Goddess Lakshmi, you're going to be hard pressed to find a mantra of hers, but goddess Dhumavati, what is happening here? Goddess Dhumavati, which is said to be an expression of a Lakshmi, her mantra is, what's her mantra? Doom. The smoky mantra. We'll discuss that later. Shreem is the moon's mantra, and much like the moon is the planet that fulfills your desires. She satiates you. She makes you full. And she makes you so full that she makes you recline. You don't feel like going out into the world, fighting others. There's no jealousy in Lakshmi, because she so satisfies you that you do not feel the need to covet what somebody else has, for example, which is different from a Lakshmi. It is said that a house where a Lakshmi exists, there's a lot of quarreling within that house. And of course, it's easy to interpret the various reasons why. There could be a lot of jealousy, sibling from sibling. There could be a desire to, because of the ambition that you have, you may neglect some of your household duties because you want to go after the things that you want. There's a lot of selfishness and self-centeredness that can exist in the household where there's a lot of Lakshmi's forces, etc. Oh, that's beautiful. Finding contentment in the small things is suggestive of somebody who... It's also suggestive of somebody who has a well-placed moon, but yes, that's a wonderful thing. If you can't find contentment in small things, then you are very much under the influence of a Lakshmi. Hello. I didn't realize I had people that viewed me from Poland. Lajla, welcome. I don't know how to say welcome in Polish, but welcome. Moving on. So, goddess Lakshmi is related to luxury. But specifically, she is related to the luxury industry and its various practices. An industry that is fundamentally based on dissatisfaction, envy, insecurity, and greed. Those who aspire to luxury, rare designer bags, expensive one-of-a-kind haute couture gowns, watches worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, these are oftentimes individuals who struggle to be satiated, struggle to find happiness in the more accessible pleasures of life, but convince themselves that all they need is that Birkin bag, all they need is that private plane, all they need is to live in a large mansion of many rooms, and then they will finally be happy. But even when they actually attain to such things, the sentiment of joy lasts for a short while, but then it vanishes. Consider the following. When someone's moon is badly placed, moon being the planet of satiation, what this suggests is that the individual struggles to arrive at a place of satiation, suggesting that they require more elaborate and complex morsels in order to be fulfilled. So are you guys understanding this point that I'm trying to make? So... let's go over here. I don't even know what image I could draw up or anything like that. Just luxury, right? A lot of times people who aspire to the most luxurious things, they don't aspire to these things for their own sake. They aspire it because they are very, very greedy. They aspire to it because they are very, very jealous of others. They aspire to it because they're ambitious. Ambition knows no bounds, right? But even when they actually possess these objects, these rare, highly expensive golden objects, much like the gold winnowing baskets and the gold chariot of Lakshmi, it is never enough for them. It is never enough for them. I'm trying to see which image is my favorite here, actually. I think I like this one better. And this never enough energy is related to Jyeshta and Mula. Jyeshta is more the ambitious side of Lakshmi, whereas Mula is more so the materialistic side of Lakshmi. So Jyeshtas have no bounds for their ambition. Like, it is often said of one Taylor Swift. I don't look into her too much, so I don't know. But people often accuse her of being extremely ambitious and also greedy, but extremely ambitious. So ambitious as to not desire anybody else to take the number one spot. What was that thing that people were saying about Taylor Swift a while back? They were saying that some other up-and-coming singer, Olivia Rodrigo, she was coming up on the charts or something like that, and then Taylor Swift released one of her endless variations of her albums so she could block the ascent of this Olivia Rodrigo or something like that. And of course, Taylor Swift is a Jyeshta son, I believe. She's a Jyeshta son. And so Taylor Swift also carries a lot of Alaksmi's ambitious nature, because there's no stopping her. There's no stopping her. She does not slow down. There's no stopping her, and it's never enough for her, it seems. Now, where were we? Did we finish this part? Okay, let's go down here. Let us go more into detail on Goddess Lakshmi's iconography. Curious enough, she is described as having large lips, but sunken cheeks. Large lips. Let me do this. But sunken cheeks. Let's do it like that. Now, her having large lips and sunken cheeks is actually very fascinating, because in physiognomy, in face reading, it is generally said that the cheeks rule one's ability to enjoy life and extract pleasure from experience. The cheeks rule our ability to feel satiated. And also in astrological physiognomy, in astrological face reading, the cheeks are said to be ruled by Venus. And again, both Moon and Venus are are planets of satiation. They are planets that create desire, but there are planets that also satiate you of desire. You know, they fill your belly. And they're also planets of happiness as well. Moon and Venus are our capacity to enjoy life. And when your Moon and your Venus are very well placed, you can enjoy anything. You can enjoy anything. You don't have to be the type of person that tells yourself, ooh, I can only enjoy, watches if I have like the most expensive Patek Philippe. You know, if your Moon and Venus are very well placed, you're going to be the type of person that can enjoy watches, even if they're not necessarily costing $100,000. If you have Moon and Venus very well placed, you're the type of person that can find beauty in the everyday experiences and in the everyday objects of life. You know what I mean? If you have a very well placed Moon and Venus, even if something is not very attractive, even if you get an apartment that's not very pretty, you're gonna beautify that apartment and enjoy the beauty that you create. But when Moon and Venus are not well placed in your chart, for you to be happy, it is a struggle. For you to be happy, it is a struggle. One of the issues with having Moon debilitated in Scorpio, but especially Jyeshta, is that you're never happy. It is very, very difficult to satisfy you. You keep on telling yourself, because Jyeshta is the more ambitious side of Alaksmi, you keep on telling yourself, okay, all I have to do is achieve that. All I have to do is achieve that, and then I'll finally be happy. But even when you achieve that, guess what? You're still not happy. You know, if you have placements in Mula, if they're associated with other things, or if you have placements with Ketu and Saturn, well, yes, with Ketu and Saturn, it's also the same thing, but of a different variation. You know, Saturn is the side of Alaksmi of extremely high standards. You just have very high standards for everything. And you're always picking apart flaws in everything. And you're also never satisfied. But let's move on. We were talking about physiognomy, right? All right, yes, once again. So remember, the cheeks in face reading rule your ability, your capacity for joy, your capacity to experience pleasure, your capacity to extract pleasure from experience. People who have larger cheeks, there's this one actress, what is her name? My sister really likes the Vampire Diaries and those type of shows. There's this one actress, I keep forgetting her name. Davina, I think. Davina from the originals. Her name is Danielle Campbell. Yes, Danielle Campbell. I just want to show you guys her cheeks. You know, Danielle Campbell has very fleshy, round cheeks, right? And cheeks like these, they're associated with people who, for them to be happy, it's easy. They don't need the biggest mansions. They don't need the fanciest cars. For them to be happy, it's easy. They usually have a naturally happy aura. But I want to show you more examples, but for that, let's finish the paragraph. Where were we? All right, so now let us speak of the lips. The lips are related to how much we wish to consume from the world, and are also related to sensuality and indulgence in face reading. The lips, according to some astrologers, are ruled by Rahu, the materially hungry planet. So for goddess Alaksmi to have large lips but sunken cheeks suggests that, though she is ever consuming and always eating and eating, she never actually enjoys any of the things that she swallows, and she is always craving more. Again, despite her greed and hoarding nature, she quite literally does not possess the capacity for joy. Now, the reason why I wanted to finish that paragraph is because of this. We will continue to read how the luxury industry is actually much more under the influence of Lakshmi than Lakshmi, right? And something that is very interesting is that fashion models oftentimes represent, no, they don't oftentimes represent, they really do represent the ideal luxury customer. They represent the, what is that word? Yes, they represent the archetype of the luxury customer, you know what I mean? So, high fashion models. So we saw that Danielle Campbell, for example, had round cheeks. There was a fleshiness to her cheeks. But what do we know about the stereotypical high fashion model? The stereotypical high fashion model has sunken cheeks, very much like the sunken cheeks of goddess Lakshmi that we're reading. High fashion models tend to have sunken cheeks, but they tend to have very beautiful, well-formed lips, though. Their lips tend to be a little bit on the medium to large a lot of the times. So sunken cheeks, but medium to large lips, right? And this is so fascinating because, again, since Alaksmi generally rules the luxury industry and also the high fashion industry, it's very interesting that these agents, as fashion models represents these agents of the fashion industry, they also carry many of the facial features that are described of Lakshmi. It's curious. I mean, obviously, Lakshmi is oftentimes said to be unattractive and ugly. Fashion models are obviously very attractive and very pretty. But yes, they still carry those other elements. They still carry those face reading elements, you know. And when you look at fashion models, I mean, what do you see? I mean, compare Danielle Campbell. Compare Danielle Campbell. These images are very, very small. These images are very, very small. These images are very, very small. But in any case, when you look at a high fashion model, they don't look like the most approachable people, do they? And they also have that look. They have that look of people that are not easy to please. Fashion models, as they're strutting down the runway, they do not have faces of people that look easy to please or easy to approach. And that is why they're associated with this industry of people and these items that are to be sold to people who are also not easily pleased or easily approached. You know what I mean? This is different from the more fleshy girl next door look of people like, again, Danielle Campbell and things like that, who have a face and have features that suggest that they are much easier to please and they find pleasure and joy in everyday experiences. You know what I mean? And so that's very, very curious. Let me go over to the chat because I've been talking for too long. And then we will continue with what we're reading here. What can truly satisfy them? You want to know the truth? Nothing. It's one of the reasons why ultimately the only real thing that people under Alaksmi can do is to actually accept that nothing can satisfy them, and then they slowly start letting go of materialism and start embracing spirituality. And that's actually one of the effects of goddess Dhumavati, which is one of the expressions of Alaksmi, and Dhumavati is much more connected to its expression in Mula. So, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but Dhumavati is said to be the smoky goddess. Why is she the smoky goddess? Because she can see beyond the illusions of the material plane. She can see beyond the illusions of the material plane, and so she teaches us how to not obsess over material things. It is actually said that one of the ways of inviting her energies, Dhumavati's energies, is by looking at a beautiful thing, let's say a beautiful woman, right? One of the ways that it's said of inviting her energies, her good energies, is by looking at a beautiful young woman and imagining her as very, very old. Imagine this beautiful woman as old, losing her youth, losing the moisture of her beauty, her cheeks sinking, reduce her to her bones, like see her decaying. Because the idea is that when you contemplate the decay behind all things, when you contemplate the end results of all things, when you remind yourself that even in beauty there is decay, even in beauty there is ugliness, when you contemplate these things, you free yourself from the pursuit of material things. Because if you're somebody who's strongly under Lakshmi's energies, nothing within the material plane will ever satisfy you, but you will be deceived into thinking that something will satisfy you. The only thing that you can do to truly be free from that is to slowly let go of materialism, accept the fact that it will never satisfy you, and start to embrace spirituality more and more. And it's very interesting that actually Jyeshta and Mula are very spiritually ascetic nakshatras, because Jyeshta is actually a nakshatra that is associated with yogis, associated with people who perform austerities, are associated with people who deny themselves indulgences, and people who are very, very spiritual. And Mula as well, and Ketu as well, and Saturn as well. When you exist within a culture, that is non-materialistic, and you have Alaksmi's energies in your chart, that non-materialistic culture will have spiritual tools that will help you move on from materialism so you can embrace spirituality. But if you have a Lakshmi's nakshatras and you exist within a highly material culture that does not have a lot of spirituality in it, or spirituality is not a very common thing, people who have Jyeshta or Mula placements, they can really lose them. Especially if you have Mula placements, you can really, really lose yourself in the materialism of that culture. Okay, so Venusian Stud is telling me that Taylor Swift keeps releasing variations to block Charlie XCX in England. Interesting. Ola H6N is telling me that millionaires and billionaires have Mula active. I have Saturn in second house in it, and I had more that I needed growing up. My adopted stepsister is pure Lakshmi and is stealing from me and my mom. Okay, wow. So sorry to hear that. Oh, pure Lakshmi. I see. You have cheeks like Daniel Campbell. I'm sure that's what you're trying to say. Daniel Campbell Rohini? I don't think so. I think that she is a Shravana. I was looking at her chart. Oh my goodness. I was looking at her charts last week. I think she's a Shravana. Yeah, that's right. See? But she also has moon conjunct sun, and Shravana is also a moon nakshatra, and so it's going to have some of those Rohini attributes. And yes, Rohini in general also has a lot of... In fact, Claire Nocti does her studies on physiognomy. Let's see some of these. Yeah, these large fleshy cheeks, which suggests a capacity for enjoyment. Large face. Thank God for her research. Let's read the ends here. Where are we? Yeah, so round cheeks do keep attention on a person's face. It's one of the reasons why rounded cheek people are less common in the fashion industry, I suppose. Because, yeah. Thank you so much, Heavenly Sims. She says, or he says, I don't know. I love all that you do. I really appreciate that. I really, really do. What are the tools to help if somebody lives in materialistic culture? The best thing for you to do is for you to find an ascetic form of spirituality. First and foremost, if you can find like a spiritual or religious institution in your environment, that'd be awesome. But if you can't, do the basic thing, which is begin with the basic thing, which is meditation. Begin with meditation. Eventually, you want to be able to meditate for at least 1 hour a day, because it is generally said that all spiritual activities should be conducted for at least like 1 hour a day. Jesus Christ himself said that prayer should be done for at least 1 hour, right? So, but obviously, if you've never meditated, to meditate for a strict 1 hour is going to be very, very tough for you. So start by 5 minutes a day, work your way up to 20 minutes, and then eventually you'll get to 1 hour. But if you live in a very materialistic culture, then yes, doing that will really, really, really help. In this case, Venusian stud, one of these energies is going to win out. One of these energies is going to win out. Yeah. You're either going to be very much more under Venus or more under Alaksmi. So that is something that needs study. Yes, it does. Jyeshtā and Navamsa, the Navamsa chart does manifest in everyday life, but the D1 will always take priority. Both Alakshmi and Lakshmi have a lot to do with material and spiritual things, actually. Okay, you have an ex-friend that had Jyeshtā and Venus. And despite the talents and skills that that person has, they were still jealous for you? That's interesting. No, Venus stud, they do coexist. Lakshmi and Alakshmi, they do coexist. They always exist together. But in an individual person's life and an individual person's charts, one of these energies is going to win out a little bit more than the other. You're either going to be the type of person that is more satisfied with everyday experiences or much, much less satisfied with everyday experience. You know, for some people, it's going to be much more extreme. For other people, it's going to be much more moderate. But there's always one energy that wins out a little bit more. There's always one energy that wins out a little bit more. Let me go back to my documents. All right, so here we are. So we can see that despite the fact that this goddess Alakshmi, is generally considered a goddess of poverty, she's in truth a goddess of conspicuous consumption, a goddess of extreme materialism and extremely elevated standards that is never content with anything that she is given, no matter how rare, how hard to achieve, how precious, and how juicy. Her sister, Lakshmi, on the other hand, is the goddess of contentment itself, and she teaches us that, to be truly happy in this world, we do not need fancy yacht trips around the Riviera or rare jewels from around the world. Lakshmi teaches us that everything that we need for joy is already readily available all around us. Let us go more into detail as to the ways in which it is actually the forces of Alakshmi that rule the luxury industry and not Lakshmi herself. Consider the following. It is insecurity and low self-esteem that is one of the driving forces behind luxury consumption. Many people pretend as though they wish for luxury simply because these items are of higher quality. But this is not always the case. It is an open secret that many luxury items are marked up 200%, 400%, or much more. Consider designer sunglasses as a very good example, like those produced by Gucci or Prada. It is an open secret that these sunglasses are produced in the same factories as those as Ray-Bans. But owing to the name of these brands, they can get away with selling them for 50 times more than what Ray-Ban could get away with. And they know that people will buy these items in order to satisfy an inferiority complex. Many industry insiders, as well as luxury customers that have been shopping at these brands for decades, claim also that the quality of many designer handbags have gone down astronomically, and yet the prices continue to increase. And yet people still buy into these brands because the open secret is inferiority. So, sunglasses, right? Sunglasses are always a very good example and are always a very good argument. Buying Gucci sunglasses, like, they have nothing special. There's nothing special about them. Gucci sunglasses, Prada sunglasses, they're as good as the sunglasses that you find at any random store in your town, right? Because in terms of the actual quality, it is the exact same quality. The only difference is that Gucci sunglasses say Gucci and Prada sunglasses say Prada. And so really you're paying for the name and you're paying for the opportunity to display yourself, to show yourself off. If you're somebody who's buying designer sunglasses, you're really just buying those sunglasses to show off. There's really no other. You can't even say that you could say that you're buying them because you also find them nice looking and pretty and things like that. But you can find pretty and nice looking sunglasses of various brands that are much, much, much more affordable. Designer sunglasses are one of those things that you buy simply because you want to show people that you can buy those things. And if that is the reason why you're buying it, then guess what? You are under Lakshmi's influences. Because Lakshmi is the general force of envy and jealousy. It is the envy that you have of other people, and is the envy that you also want to create in other people. Because Lakshmi's energies is also incapable of enjoying items for their own sake. You see what I mean? And so that is one of the reasons why, yes, the luxury industry is more connected to Lakshmi. People who are obsessed with these luxury items are often not moved by a simple and innocent love of beautiful things, but indeed are moved by a desperation to keep up with the Jonesies. They are moved by need, not to enjoy these goods for their own sake, but indeed a need to show off to the rest of the world and provoke those watching them into envy. There is a fascinating case study of the brand Louis Vuitton and how their handbags were selling in China that I would like to reference. So, decades ago, the sale of Louis Vuitton bags was actually going down, and executives were desperate to learn why. They discovered that the reputation of the brand among the upper class in China was no longer that of exclusivity and refinement. Apparently, the brand had gained a reputation for being a brand for secretaries, because the bags became affordable enough that an office secretary could save off enough to purchase a Louis Vuitton bag with not too much difficulty. Because of how common that bag was becoming, the elites in China began to abandon the brand, which ultimately led to a decline in sales for several years. But what was comical was the solution that Louis Vuitton developed to correct this issue. A solution that saw the return of its prestige and a subsequent increase in sales. Price increases. Louis Vuitton quite literally increased the prices of their bags, high enough as to make it less easy for middle-class secretaries to afford their bags. But as a result, their bags became less common, and they earned back some of that exclusivity they had lost. And this in turn saw the return of elite Chinese customers to the brand. So this case study goes to show that really, let's go back up. This case study goes to show that really it is the force of Lakshmi that was driving this phenomenon. Lakshmi, again, with her golden winnowing basket, her very high standards of what she claims to enjoy. Lakshmi, with her sunken cheek, suggests of her inability to actually extract pleasure from experience. Lakshmi, with her bitter, jealous nature, who exists in a state of scarcity, who hates it when other people have what she wants, and who wishes to hoard wealth for herself. It is important to note that we are not saying that it is impossible for luxury to be influenced by the force of Lakshmi, as there are many people that genuinely enjoy nice things for their own sake. But regardless, the dominant force behind the luxury industry is envy. It is the need to show off. It is the need to keep up with the Jonesies. It is a need to heal an inferiority complex. So much of the luxury industry has nothing to do with actually enjoying those objects for their own sake, but instead these items are used to fill a void that can seemingly never be filled. All right, back to the chat. Hi, Ola. Yes, because they are sisters and they always walk together. If you have prominent Lakshmi, then A Lakshmi is not too far. And if you have prominent A Lakshmi, then Lakshmi is not too far. If you're a person with a lot of A Lakshmi energy, your whole life you struggle and you wrestle to get the most precious things. You yourself may not enjoy those things, but you technically have those things that exist around you. You know what I mean? Those things that could actually be enjoyed by other people in your life. Like, for example, if you have a billionaire father who is never satisfied and is extremely ambitious and who always needs to achieve more, he himself never enjoys the things that he has, but you as his child, if you have more Lakshmi placements, you get to enjoy the things that he has. And so he is consumed by A Lakshmi's forces, but you get to enjoy the results of his A Lakshmi's force, which are the Lakshmi goods that he has around himself. So yeah, these energies, they're always walking together in interesting ways. Because Mercury itself does not necessarily carry A Lakshmi's energies. Saturn carries A Lakshmi's energies. A few reasons why. First and foremost, the wife of Saturn is Jyeshtā. The wife of Saturn is Jyeshtā, number one. Number two, Saturn also is traditionally the planet of poverty. It is the planet that carries all of A Lakshmi's qualities. It is a planet of poverty. It is a planet that cannot nourish itself. It is the planet of destitution. It is the planet that exists in the deserts. It is the planet of scarcity. And so, as you can see, there are many more common things between Saturn and Lakshmi, different from Mercury. You know, you cannot always 100% associate a Vimshotri planet lords to things, you know what I mean? You have to learn how to interpret these symbols because they're not always 100% transferable. So here's the thing. Let's say in the case of Jyeshtā, if your moon is debilitated in Jyeshtā, then yes, if you form a niche bung, it can heal you from some of those Jyeshtā qualities. But here's the thing. If you have Ketu, Saturn in the first or conjunct your three planets, if you have Mula placements, you're always going to suffer from dissatisfaction. But listen, dissatisfaction with the material world is not necessarily a bad thing. It is a good thing if eventually you learn that the material plane cannot satisfy you and then you move on to spirituality. It is only a bad thing if you never discover spirituality, you insist upon materialism, you insist upon finding things within the material world to satisfy you, and then you never find it. That becomes self-destructive. Mula is its most self-destructive to an individual within the material world. But when the person begins to let go of the material world and accept spirituality, Mula is extremely beneficial. You see. And so a culture that is very materialistic, a Mula person can suffer a lot. But a culture that is very spiritual, a Mula person can really succeed. A culture that is very materialistic, a Ketu person can suffer a lot. But a culture that is very spiritual, a Ketu person can really succeed. And so, yeah. If what you love is quality Venusian stud and you can actually arrive at a state of happiness and contentment, then you may be more under Lakshmi's qualities. And also, you told me that you have a Venus at Makaraka. If that is true, Venus itself is a Lakshmi planet, which can add to satisfaction. And then you also said that your Venus in Purvashada. Purvashada is also a nakshatra that is very much of Lakshmi because, Lakshmi is a goddess of wealth and water and satiation. Purvashada has a lot to do with satiation and water. In many ways, Purvashada also carries Lakshmi's qualities. Even in terms of the facial features of Purvashada, they tend to be more plump, more rounded, more sensual. You know, Very different from the drier physiognomy of Jyeshta and Mula and Saturn. So yeah. She may have other placements that can help her. In the case of Alaksmi. I see, I see. Andrea XO. Okay, I see what you mean. Hmm. Touch on a slash of Venus. I would have to think about that for a little while. I'd have to think about that for a little while. So where are we now? Where are we now? Okay, we're here. All right, then. So continuing on. So the luxury industry is fully aware that it is an inferiority complex that is the driving force behind its consumption. The professionals within the industry understand that inferiority is something that drives their customers. Consider, for example, the very common phenomenon of the rude salesperson in a luxury store like a Ferrari. It actually provokes within customers a desire for acceptance and status. It can also provoke within some customers a desire to humiliate these sales representatives by purchasing many items from their stores as a means of proving to them just how much money they have. Obviously, this is a ploy of the industry itself, and and customers are falling right into the hands of the brand. All this insecurity and inferiority, of course, benefit the brand in the end of the day and their sales. Another phenomenon that drives sales is the idea that the harder something is to attain, the more people paradoxically desire it. The various tricks of the luxury industry. So once again, we are seeing the qualities of Alaksmi made manifest in the luxury sector. The promise of pleasure that these high prices and hard to reach items offer, that is not always fulfilled, is once again related to the golden winnowing basket of the hungry goddess, who herself aspires to ever more difficult to attain objects which she believes will satisfy her, but never actually do. The scarcity or artificial scarcity of luxury items also mirror the state of scarcity in which this goddess exists, which provokes within her a desire to hoard wealth and hoard objects for herself and act envious and bitter and angry and resentful towards everyone who has what she would like to have. And again, no matter how much she has, she remains covetous. Another way in which Alakshmi's energies can manifest in behavior is through compulsive and obsessive self-inspection, or what we like to call vanity. Essentially, this is dissatisfaction directed towards one's own appearance. Whereas Lakshmi can influence a person towards beautification out of fun and joy, Lakshmi is already related to a sense of security relative to one's appearance, as she also blesses an individual with enough attractiveness as is necessary to live a fulfilled life. But for those under the influence of the hungry and never satisfied goddess Alakshmi, they may never arrive at a state of security regarding their own appearance, and instead become obsessed with beauty treatments and skincare regimens and plastic surgery. But no matter how objectively attractive they become, they are still insecure. These goddesses represent external states, indeed, but they also represent internal states. Someone under the influence of Lakshmi could actually be less objectively beautiful than someone under the influence of Alakshmi, but the individual under Alakshmi's influence will feel insecure and be obsessive over their appearance. Alakshmi and her planets and nakshatras can influence an individual towards constant self-inspection, constant preening and grooming. The individual constantly wishes to perfect themselves. All right then, so now let's talk a little bit about this. Now, what we just read applies more to those who have Saturn, Ketu, and Mula. To Jyeshta, it applies less, but it applies more to Mula, Ketu, and Saturn. Mula and Ketu, and I will do a video on this one day, is actually related to vanity a lot. And Saturn is related to constantly finding imperfections in yourself, constantly finding imperfections. Every single time you look in the mirror, there's always an imperfection. There's something that you need to fix, right? And it's very interesting about people who are very, very vain and never satisfied with their appearance. It's very interesting the procedures that they often get done. Because have you noticed a trend among many people who are very, very, very obsessed with plastic surgery? They tend to deflate their cheeks and they tend to inflate their lips. And it's so interesting that they tend to do that because they very much look like how people describe Alaksmi. Again, Alaksmi described as sunken cheeks and full lips, much like how we saw these fashion models. Let me type here. I don't even know what to type here. Too much plastic surgery, maybe. Let's write that. So Donatella Versace is one example of this. But Donatella Versace, if I remember, does not have any of Lakshmi's. I think when you look at her chart, it's not obvious. Actually, no. Now that I'm thinking about it, I can think of a few things in her charts. I can think of a few things in her chart. But anyway, Donatella Versace has always had a look of very full lips and cheeks that were more so sunken. More so sunken. This person, I think, is an extreme example. I don't even know this person. Joan Rivers, another person who was very obsessed with plastic surgery. Yeah, the stereotypical obsessed with plastic surgery look is very, very, very full lips. It's very interesting that it's always very, very, very full lips and a lot of times very sunken cheeks. Removing the fat of the cheeks. Bella Hadid, she's not often represented as obsessed with plastic surgery, but she also has sunken cheeks and full lips. No, Bella Hadid's lips are actually not that full, now that I remember it. There is a celebrity that I forgot. Her name is Kelly Osbourne. I want to check Kelly Osbourne's chart because people have been suspecting that Kelly Osbourne has had too many procedures. But let me check that. Over here, this is Donatella Versace. This is Donatella Versace. She has Sun opposite Saturn. Now, this is a special combination. This is actually a very negative combination. It's called Ucha Raj Yoga. So we all are familiar with Nish Bhang Raj Yoga, right? Which is the reversal of debility. But Ucha Bhang Yoga is reversal of exaltation. There are some combinations that a person can have that can actually destroy the exaltation of planets. This is what some astrologers argue. You're not going to read much about Uchabang Yoga. For some reason, a lot of astrologers don't write a lot about that. But in any case, one of the combinations for Uchabang Yoga, the reversal of exaltation, is if two exalted planets are aspecting each other and they are enemies, then they mutually knock each other out of exaltation. Over here, Donatella Versace's Sun is exalted in Aries and her Saturn is exalted in Libra. But they're mutually aspecting each other. And aspects, you have to look at the degree because within 10 degrees, they are affecting each other, right? Her Sun is at 17 degrees and her Saturn is at 25 degrees, so that's within 10 degrees. And so that mutually knocks both planets out of a state of debility. And also, if you have bought my book on beauty in Jyotish, then you would know that as well. You'd know that as well. Oh, so that's interesting. Kelly Osbourne has a moon in Jyeshtā. She has a moon in Jyeshtā. And then Kelly Osbourne lately because this is what she used to look like before. Perfectly normal girl, perfectly normal person. Cheeks relatively full and things like that. But how she looks now, her cheeks are very much sunken. Her eyebrows are raised and her lips are huge, right? Very much like the stereotypical Alaksmi description. Because Alaksmi, again, is depicted as sunken cheeks and full lips. And so how very interesting that all these people who are obsessed with the luxury industry, all these people who are highly ambitious, and are always aspiring towards more, like even physically, they tend to morph into Alaksmi. And it's very interesting when we speak of plastic surgery because there are many people in the face reading community that have an issue with plastic surgery because they say, oh, well, you can't read this person's face because this person got plastic surgery, which means that now all their facial features are affected. And so you can't read their personality clearly. Many people in the face reading community, they argue that. But I have to say, sometimes I wonder if that is really the case. You want to know why? Because it is your mind and your psychology that chose those procedures. You know what I mean? It is your mind and your psychology that chose those procedures and it has decided to keep those procedures. Remember something about how, spiritually speaking, it is said that the body is built. It is said that we choose our bodies. We choose our bodies. Our psychological state and our spiritual state at the time that we die and at the time that we are choosing to reincarnate, it is that psychological state that influences what our body looks like. It is that spiritual state that influences what our body looks like. And so, shouldn't it be the same thing that while you are alive and while you have the chance to modify your body while you are alive, then the features that you choose to augment or not augment or change, even that is a reflection of your own psychology? Shouldn't that also count? So I sometimes wonder if people in the face reading community, I sometimes wonder about that because I'm not sure if I always agree. Because to me, in terms of her facial features, to some extent, you can make the argument that that is reflective of her psychology. A certain dissatisfaction, a certain profound dissatisfaction as she's morphing into goddess Alaksmi. All right, let me go back to the chat. Thank you so much for saying so, Venetian Stud. Venetian Stud is saying that these lectures and discussions are informative and fun. I'm so very grateful to hear that. So very humbled to hear that. So very humbled. You know, when I'm out here reading this white document on Microsoft Word, I'm not exactly sure if this is the most exciting thing. It's very different from my other style of videos, which I have, of course, not abandoned. A new video is coming soon. I'm actually going to make a new nakshatra video on Ashwini. So yeah, stay tuned for that. In fact, next year, it is still currently 2025. Next year, I'm going to make a lot of videos about Ketu nakshatras. A lot of videos, so yeah. But I really appreciate the compliment. Saturn and Ketu in the same house, then you're really going to struggle a lot with Lakshmi's qualities. You're going to be the type of person that you're going to feel very zombified all the time. Nothing in life excites you. Nothing in life animates you. You just feel like a zombie. You want to find excitement in life, but nothing riles you, nothing stirs you. You tell yourself that you need more materialistic things, more heightened experiences, but even when you have those experiences, you're still not enjoying yourself. So that's difficult. If you have Saturn and Ketu in the first house, that can be hard. When will Saturn in the sixth house video be out? Man, I don't know. I'm going to try to make it happen, but I don't know. Blessed, hi, how are you? Oh, look, you even put the accent in my name. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, I went down too quickly. Changes in face reflect changes in personality. I mean, do you mean like natural changes, or do you mean like when you personally and purposely change your face? I don't know. I have to say, I also agree, but, well, I guess she wasn't satisfied with the way that she looked. Anuradha does not suffer. Anuradha is not one of Lakshmi's nakshatras. It does not excite itself as much as Lakshmi's nakshatras, but it is not categorically one of Lakshmi's nakshatras. Hello again, hello again. Moon conjunct Ketu, Jupiter, and Mars. Would I say that Venus nakshatras are also vain? You know something, Venusian stud? I'm going to make a video on this next year where I explore this more deeply. But here's what I'll say. The most vain planets are Saturn and Ketu. Because Saturn and Ketu are obsessed with finding flaws and correcting those flaws. The vanity of Saturn and Ketu comes from a very ugly place. They're just never happy with themselves. And so they're always looking for more procedures. Whereas the vanity of Moon and Venus is more of a fun vanity. Oh, let me beautify myself because beautifying myself is fun. Let me try different styles because trying different styles is fun. Moon and Venus are much more experimental with their beauty. Moon and Venus are much more, because there are some nakshatras that beauty for them is legitimately a source of joy and a source of fun. Whereas for other nakshatras, beauty comes from a place of inferiority and insecurity. You know what I mean? And so I'm not going to use the words vain to describe Venus nakshatras. I'm going to use the words fun with beauty and fun with beautifying themselves. And you know what? Right now, Venusian stud, what I'm saying may not make a lot of sense. But next year, when I make the videos that I want to make, I think you'll understand it much better. If you have Chitra Sun, Jyeshtā Rising, and Mula Moon, you're probably, I don't know the rest of your birth chart, but you're probably very vain. You're probably a very vain person who is very obsessed with their looks. Probably. Stop. I'm not your idol. Anuradha, man, I'm sorry, but I don't know. Barney is actually not a Lakshmi's nakshatras. Barney is actually very, very much Lakshmi's nakshatras, but there are also... No, Barney is very much Lakshmi's nakshatras. See, here's the thing about Lakshmi. Lakshmi is very enjoyment-oriented. Rohini, Purvashada, Purva Palguni, Barney, they are very enjoyment-oriented. You know what I mean? If you have the capacity to enjoy life, and you really enjoy life to its fullest, it's one of those signs that you do not have a lot of Lakshmi influencing you. Because the thing about Lakshmi is that Lakshmi does not enjoy life, does not have the capacity to enjoy life. Barneys really enjoy life. They enjoy life so much that they literally destroy their own bodies with how much they indulge in life. Making spirituality real is saying this is less of an individual decision for these people, but more of a collective trend because they all look the same. I completely agree. Yes, absolutely. You know what, Andrea XO, I agree with the things that you're saying, but here you're saying that when you change that feature, it changes your personality. You want to know what my argument is, Andrea XO? My argument is your personality was already changed, and that is the reason why you got that feature. That is my argument. But in any case, we're saying the same thing. We're basically saying chicken or egg. Who cares? It's the same thing anyway. You know what? Since we're talking a lot about physiognomy, let's go to some of Claire Nocty's research. She's done so much research on physiognomy. We might as well appreciate it. And let us also do this. All right, so over here, I have Claire Nocty's research on Mula and physiognomy. And check this out. Why did you go up? The lips are on the larger side, aren't they? Look at this lady's lips. Look at this lady's lips. Rosie Huntington Whiteley. Look at these ladies. The lips are on the larger side and the cheeks are on the sunken side, aren't they? This woman over here, especially. This woman over here. I don't know this lady. Ilana Smet. And again, Lakshmi and Lakshmi's nakshatras tend to create a model-like beauty because, again, the modeling industry tends to celebrate women that look like this. Sunken cheeks, and fuller lips. Lakshmi tends to create this model sort of beauty, this more unattainable beauty, this hungrier type of beauty. Whereas Lakshmi's nakshatra tends to create like the girl next door, the boy next door, right? But you know what the truth is? The truth is that on an everyday basis, people tend to prefer Lakshmi beauty. People may prefer Lakshmi's beauty in the media, on TV, but in real life, they tend to prefer Lakshmi's beauty, actually. At least in my culture, that's what they do. I don't know about your culture, but in my culture. Like in my culture, for example, a Rosie Huntington Whiteley, who is beautiful, would not be as interesting as I don't know. But anyway, yes, we're here. Let's look at some of these Rohini examples. Notice that Rohini, the way the clear Nakti is showing us here, their faces are just overall fuller. If you're somebody who has a fuller face, a plumper face, in general, it suggests a capacity for enjoyment. If your face is more sunken, it suggests that you do not have as much of a capacity for enjoyment. It suggests that you do not have a capacity to enjoy it. It suggests that you're somebody who's hard to impress, a person that is difficult to please. And that may sound cool in certain contexts, but in many other contexts, it's not very fun to be around somebody who's hard to impress and hard to please. It can be very frustrating. It can be very frustrating. It can be very frustrating. All right. Let us go back here. Okay then. Now, ambition is another one of goddess Lakshmi's effects on the psyche of an individual, and this aspect more so falls into Jyeshtā nakshatra and its tendencies. So again, extreme materialism is much more of Mula's expression of Lakshmi, but ambition is much more of Jyeshta's aspects of Lakshmi. Vanity and self-preoccupation is much more of Saturn's aspects of Lakshmi, and then also vanity, but also materialism has a lot to do with Ketu's aspect of Lakshmi. So moving on. Speaking of Lakshmi again, no accomplishment is ever enough. No matter how many awards you win, no matter how many people sing your praises, it is never enough. The ambition of Lakshmi is never sated. It is to the point where she will sit jealously on the throne, even long past her prime, denying newcomers their right on the throne, even if they've earned it. Sounds a lot like what people accuse Nicki Minaj of doing, and Nicki Minaj is a Jyeshtā. Now, Jyeshtā is more so the ambitious side of Lakshmi, whereas Mula is the materially consuming aspect of Lakshmi. I'm saying things that I was saying a minute ago, so I'm just going to skip that part. Skip that part. Okay, we're almost at the end of the document, so I'm going to read the chat a little bit. Claire Nakti's research is incredible. Oh, is she? Dua Lipa. Oh, that's wonderful. All right, then. Let me end this document. So there are some basic incantations that people commonly say can expel Lakshmi and cast her away. That very basic incantation is mixing lemon juice and chili peppers and mopping the entryway of your home with this liquid. Another way of using lemons and chilies is by hanging lemons and chilies on the doorstep of your house. This is a very, very common everyday thing that apparently people say casts away Lakshmi. Some people say that Lakshmi hates the smell of lemons and chilies, and that's why she runs away. Other people say that she loves those things, and so when she eats those things, she's satiated, and then she leaves you alone. Anyway. The point is that people often say that it works. In fact, I'm pretty sure I read this part on a Wikipedia page, probably. Let us move on. So from this, we can extrapolate that the sour taste, and the spicy taste are both used to cast away the forces of a Lakshmi. What is curious about the sour taste is, scientifically, no other taste produces as much saliva as the sour taste. And saliva is interesting because it is what is used to lubricate the mouth, lubricate food and the body in order for us to better taste and enjoy what we eat. So we are seeing that even physiologically, the sour taste is literally expelling the dryness and tastelessness of a Lakshmi and calls to us the ability to enjoy. The element of water is, of course, related to lubrification, and both water and lubrification are related to Venus and the moon, as well as the goddess Lakshmi. And so, quite literally, the mouth-watering quality of sour foods expels a Lakshmi and calls the flood of waters of Lakshmi into the constitution. Now moving on to spicy foods, which are another taste that is connected with the casting away of a Lakshmi. It is said of spicy foods that it can help people to eat more slowly and feel fuller. But even better than that, it is often said of spicy food that it can literally improve your mood. Quoting an article, the consumption of these foods releases endorphins and dopamine. This creates euphoria similar to a runner's high. So we are seeing in these two different tastes a way of healing the two major issues with a Lakshmi: pleasure or the lack of pleasure of a Lakshmi. Or rather, let me say this: a Lakshmi does not experience pleasure, but pleasure is something that you gain by the sour taste because the sour taste causes wetness, juiciness, and lubrification. And joy is something else that a Lakshmi lacks, but joy is caused by the exciting and thrill of life effects, the thrill for life effects caused by spicy foods. Okay, I'm not even sure if I even expressed myself very well there. Let me try for the very last time. A Lakshmi does not experience pleasure and she does not experience joy, but the sour taste and the spicy taste, allegedly, according to various articles, right? It can bring the wetness and lubrification that can create pleasure and the capacity to enjoy things, and it can create the excitement that produces joy. Actually, more specifically, the sour taste is said to be ruled by Venus, whereas the spicy taste is ruled by Mars and the Sun. The sour and spicy taste in Ayurveda are also said to be healing to the Vata dosha, and Alakshmi is essentially a Vata goddess, owing to how dry she is. She is also related to the Vata nakshatras of Mula and Jyeshtā, as well as to the Vata planets of Saturn and the Vata Pitta planet of Ketu. All right, then, we are at the end of this document. I'm going to be adding a few more things to this document, and then I'm going to be uploading it to my Patreon. Please subscribe to my Patreon. Subscribe to my Patreon. What is my Patreon again? My Patreon is... Support me on my Patreon. Read all my articles. I still have not uploaded the Saturn in the 5th article, only the Saturn in 4th. I was just adding a few more things. And yeah, I'm just going to read more questions that you guys have, and then we're going to call it a night, because where I'm from, it is very, very late. You love spicy foods and eating limes. Interesting. Okay. Trying a moon and Mars, Malga, Venus, Ishwa. Ashwini, Jupiter, Barney, Saturn. Okay, those are too many placements at once. I can't think of all that right now. But as a general rule, Chitras also are very appearance focused, and Mulas are also Mula for men are very appearance focused. But in any case, I can get behind this, and I see the argument for that. Yeah. Already subscribed to my Patreon. Awesome. Oh yes, you did. And it's getting and it's you just have to wait a little bit longer, but it's almost ready. Thank you, Andrea. Oh, are they? Oh well, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. Sorry, as in the Mars. Casa Kid, I'm reading your chart because since there aren't that many questions, I'm trying to imagine your chart right now. Just saying. Moon and Mars. That's the second house, isn't that? Okay. Shwini Jupiter, that is the sixth house because if you have a Scorpio ascendant, then Aries is in the sixth house. Okay. Barney Saturn, where's Barney? Okay, Barney is also in the sixth house. And Barney is debilitated unless it is exalted or in its own signs in the D9. Vishaka Mercury. I don't know if that's Scorpio Vishaka or Libra Vishaka. But okay, Vishaka Mercury, Saturn Ketu. Alright, so you asked the question, Casa Kid, how is it that you're not... Oh, you're asking, how does that make me appearance obsessed and yet you don't like attention? Okay, so here are a few points. Anywhere you have malefic planets reduce those significations. The second house is the house of the face and it's the house of appearances. If you have benefics in the house of the face, you're going to be obsessed with the face. You're going to want to maximize the face. You're going to pay a lot of attention to the face. If you had Venus in the second, Jupiter in the second, Moon in the second, even Mercury in the second, because Mercury is a planet of activity, you'd be very much more focused on your face. But since you have Mars, which limits things, reduces things, and it's in the second, then you might not care too much about your appearance because Mars there reduces those qualities. And then what? And then you have Jupiter and Saturn in the sixth. Okay, so you have the Great Benefic and the Great Malefic in the sixth. Okay, that requires some interpretation. Jupiter is in Ashwini. I see. And then there, Chitra Sun. Is Chitra on the side of Libra or is it on the side of Virgo? And what house is that? Do you have Jupiter? You have Chitra Sun in the 12th? Is your Chitra Sun in the 12th house? I wonder. Anyway. Ardra has a lot of dissatisfaction in it, but Ardra is not one of Alakshmi's nakshatras because the deity of Ardra is not related to Alakshmi. Jyeshta is the male version of Jyeshtā with the long A, and Jyeshtā is one of the goddesses associated with Alakshmi. Jyeshtā is also opposite Rohini, so that's another element. Jyeshtā is also the death of the moon, and the moon is a planet of Alakshmi. Mula is connected to Alaksmi because Nirrit, the deity of Mula, is also said to be another expression of Alakshmi. And so Ardra has no direct connection to Alakshmi. It may be a nakshatra of some dissatisfaction, but not in the style of Alakshmi. then the D1 wins out because the D1 always has prominence. If Chitra is in the 11th house and you're Scorpio ascendant, then Chitra is on the side of Virgo. Okay, Chitra is on the side of Virgo. Okay. Chitra is on the side of Virgo in the 11th. And then Mercury is in Vishaka. I see, I see. But the thing about Rahu Nakshatras is that Rahu Nakshatras actually enjoy the material world. They seek satiation within the material world, and they gain that satiation within the material world. Whereas Ketu Nakshatras believe that they will be satiated by the material, but are never satiated by the material, but they still act obsessively towards it. If they exist in a culture that does not, that does not. Consider something. Have you noticed that the pair of every Ketu Nakshatra is either a Venus Nakshatra or a Rahu Nakshatra? The pair of Ardra is Mula, the pair of Ashwini is Shatabisha, and the pair of Magha is Purva Palguni. Because Ketu Nakshatras, oftentimes, they can feel so removed from reality. They need the aggressive sensuality that Venus and Rahu offer them. Even though that is not ultimately satiating. But yeah. But yeah. Alright then, I think that's pretty much it, isn't it? So, I guess now we're saying goodbye. I think this was a fun stream. This was a different stream from the other streams. But don't worry, we're going to go back to Saturn through the houses. And then one day we're also going to have a video on Saturn returns as well, because I find Saturn returns an interesting conversation. Alright then, thank you guys so much for participating. Goodbye.